What if the only reason you're still waiting for a financial breakthrough is because you've been praying in a language heaven no longer responds to? What if you've been taught to beg for what's already been signed over, and every time you pray harder, the door only feels farther? There is a verse, hidden in plain sight, that Satan would rather see you suffer forever than let you read awake. Psalm 112 is not a suggestion, it is a code, a master key, the spiritual blueprint that unlocks what prayer alone never could. This is not about working harder, not about proving yourself. This is about daring to activate a design that has been buried under centuries of spiritual programming. If you ever felt a wall between you and your money, if peace always escapes you, if you've tasted hope but never inheritance, ask yourself, who benefits from you never holding the code? You can fast until you collapse, sow every seed you own, give until your pockets bleed, and still, your financial destiny, your spiritual inheritance, your inner security remains sealed like treasure behind a vault no one ever taught you to unlock. Maybe you believed the chains were your fault. Maybe you heard a preacher say, God is testing you, or just a little more faith. But what if that was never true? What if you were programmed by 1,000 sermons to ignore the one chapter that breaks every curse from your bloodline? Every struggle with money, every almost breakthrough, every night spent arguing with the silence above your bed, none of it was random. It was engineered. It was spiritual warfare disguised as religious disappointment. You never realized the most powerful code in the Bible was never hidden from you. It was hidden for you. But the world is full of believers dying outside a door marked inheritance, reciting prayers that never find a handle. Psalm 112 is not a wish. It's not for the few, the holy, or the lucky. It is a written contract, a spiritual DNA strand coded to end the era of fear, lack, and family poverty. Blessed is the one who fears the Lord, who delights in his commands. His children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. This isn't just a prophecy for another family, it's a map you were born to follow. Why then do so many who pray still struggle? Why do the faithful stay up at night, suffocating under bills, feeling cursed while others live free? If you have the courage to ask, what am I missing? The answer is a war, fought silently over one chapter, not because Satan fears your prayers, but because he fears what happens when you activate the only code he can't bribe, steal, or negotiate. The enemy's greatest victory is not your sin. It's making you think Psalm 112 is just another verse in a sea of words, making you ignore the only blueprint that can never be bought or faked. He dilutes, varies, distracts, makes you busy. Anything but let you declare the code. Most will die never knowing that the drought, the anxiety, the missed inheritance was never about praying more or fasting longer. It was about activating what heaven already signed and sealed. The battle is not for your hustle, your effort, or your ability to hold on. It is for your agreement. Your declaration is the signature. When you speak Psalm 112, you break contracts written in darkness. You rip the locks off doors welded shut by 1,000 years of fear. You step out of the shadow where Satan kept you poor, and into the light where wealth is not a wish, but the air you breathe. If you click away now, the lock keeps working. If you dare to stay, you are seconds from the key Satan never wanted in your hands. The next words you speak decide if you stay a spectator, watching destiny slip by, or if you finally tear the hinges off every door that was ever meant for you. One act of spiritual rebellion can do more than years of struggle. Write in the comments, I refuse to stay locked out. Speak it. Let your fingers and your voice become the hammer that shatters generational chains. The blueprint is in your mouth. This is not the end. What comes next will reveal why Satan has spent centuries to keep Psalm 112 out of your blood, out of your family, out of your mouth. Don't let him win again. You've prayed for breakthrough your whole life, but have you ever prayed to wake up as someone who no longer needs a breakthrough? No one told you this, but the devil's greatest attack isn't on your bank account or your business or your work ethic, it's on your memory of who you really are. Psalm 112 isn't an emergency plan for beggars. It's the blueprint for those who refuse to live like orphans in a palace built for heirs. If you understood what was coded into your spiritual DNA, you'd stop begging for miracles and start walking in inheritance. The truth is, most of us are trained to pray from lack, not from legacy. You ask, you wait, you hope, thinking God will choose the desperate. But the code of Psalm 112 was always written for those who stand up, declare, and possess, never for the ones who hide in fear of losing what was theirs all along. If you only knew the title deed has your name on it, would you still keep living like a spiritual orphan while your inheritance is already signed over? The curse is not in your wallet or your job or your family line, it's in the mirror. If the enemy can convince you that you're meant to survive, not to rule, he keeps you circling the same cycles forever. All your life, you've been programmed to expect less, to shrink, to act grateful for scraps, to wait for permission. But Psalm 112 was never a song for survivors. It's the transfer code for those who dare to live like owners, not tenants. This is not a prophecy you wait for, but an identity you wear now. There's a moment when everything shifts, not because you prayed harder, but because you declared, "This is who I am." When you speak Psalm 112, you don't just hope for favor, you step out of spiritual prison with the key still in your hand. The devil isn't afraid of your rituals or your disciplines. He's terrified you'll finally wake up and use your voice as the contract, your mouth as the signature on what heaven already released. You watched others rise, called it favor, and quietly whispered, "Why not me?" You tried to do everything right, hoping the blessing would land in your lap, but you never realized the answer was hidden in your reflection, not in your efforts. The real question isn't, when will God choose me? The question is, when will you claim what's already been signed in your name? If heaven already authorized your inheritance, why are you still waiting for a miracle to be delivered by someone else? What if the only breakthrough left is the one that happens inside your identity, not in your bank account? Most of us inherited trauma and survival stories, not legacy. We were programmed for less. Our prayers became cries for rescue, not declarations of ownership. But Satan cannot undo what God released. He can only erase the memory that you're next in line. Psalm 112 doesn't teach you to beg, it teaches you to reign. The moment you live like it's true, the ground under your family name starts to shake. The day you declare Psalm 112 is the day your family's story changes. This is the line in the sand, the break in the timeline, the rewriting of everything you called fate. Heaven never releases blessing to those who wait. Heaven delivers to those who claim the code. Your declaration is a rift in the darkness. Your mouth is the master key to every locked door, every inheritance lost to generations of fear. Who taught you that a closed door was your destiny? Who taught you to accept lack as humility? The truth is, there is no middle ground. Either you declare the code, or your name fades from the registry of inheritance. Every moment you spend undecided, every day you hesitate to step into the blueprint, darkness celebrates another locked blessing. There is no more waiting room for those who are ready to reign. If you never sign your name, your inheritance becomes a rumor, a story passed down but never lived. Refuse to be another ghost in the system, drifting between promises, haunted by stories of blessing but never living them. Refuse to let your bloodline starve while you hold the code in silence, afraid of your own authority. When you dare to wear Psalm 112 as your identity, you rip up every contract hell wrote with your family's name. You become the curse breaker, the inheritance activator, the one who dares to reign where others settled for survival. The moment you stop begging and start declaring, the entire system shifts. What will you do now that the code is back in your hands? The next layer isn't about what you have, it's about what you're finally free from. The greatest lie Satan ever sold you is that fear is your inheritance. He never needed your money. He never cared about your house, your business, your job, your plans. The only thing the enemy ever wanted was your fear, because as long as fear owns your roots, you can be handed gold and still feel bankrupt. What if every chain in your life wasn't wrapped around your wrists but around your memories? Psalm 112 was written into your bloodline before trauma ever tried to edit your story. You carry codes of breakthrough in your veins, but most people have spent their lives negotiating with phantoms, asking for permission from shadows. The curse that controls you isn't measured in dollars, but in the roots you let grow wild beneath your confession. The number in your account is only a fruit. The root is fear. Fear of never being enough. Fear of cycles repeating. Fear that what started in your ancestors will finish in you. If you could rip out the root, what would your future look like? How many times have you prayed for change, but kept the contract with fear alive in your deepest rooms? Satan can't steal what God gives, but he can teach you to guard your own chains. Most poverty isn't a lack of money. It's an agreement with fear signed in the spirit, passed down in silence. Psalm 112 doesn't just break the fruit, it kills the root. The greatest spiritual war isn't fought with demons outside, but with the voice that whispers inside. You're not allowed to have breakthrough. You're not one of them. How many prayers have been spent cutting branches while the root of lack and fear drinks deep, year after year? Every time you work yourself to exhaustion but feel empty, every time you survive but never thrive, you're tending to the symptoms, not killing the disease. Why keep surviving storms you were designed to outlast? Psalm 112 doesn't promise survival. It guarantees a shaking-proof life. He will have no fear of bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. His heart is secure. He will have no fear. In the end, he will look in triumph on his foes. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a war cry for those who are done bowing to inherited ghosts. The real enemy is not loss. It's the shadow you never noticed, whispering, "You don't deserve breakthrough." You were trained by family stories to expect lack, to be grateful for crumbs, to believe that peace is for someone else's house. Spiritual poverty is not just a situation, it's a shadow contract written on the inside, signed by silence and watered by fear. You can build empires on the outside and still let poverty sleep in your core. The truth is, you can be blessed and still feel bound. You can have opportunities and still feel orphaned. If fear owns your roots, poverty will always find a way home. What would you risk if you believed you could never lose? What decision would you make if shame was no longer your landlord? The only way to escape is to uproot, not repaint, your story. Psalm 112 is a blade, not a bandage. You can keep patching the leaks, or you can break the pipeline that feeds them. Every generation carries a chain, but Psalm 112 is the sword that shatters it. Generational trauma isn't a curse you inherit, it's a pattern you have the power to end. The curse isn't what your father did, it's the silence you keep about your authority. When you declare Psalm 112, you don't just pray for yourself, you sever contracts signed in the names of everyone who came before you. This is the moment where the pattern breaks or repeats. Will you pass the pain forward, or will you break it? Every story you heard about why you would never have enough was a seed. Psalm 112 is the rain that drowns every root of that lie. You were never meant to manage pain. You were created to destroy its source. If fear died tonight, who would you become tomorrow? How many futures would open? How many children would never have to fight your wars again? Every time you said, "This is just my cross to bear," you watered a weed God called you to uproot. Every time you called lack humility, you gave darkness another room in your inheritance. The devil wins when you accept cycles as destiny. Psalm 112 is the end of every shadow contract ever written against your bloodline. You weren't born to manage wounds, you were born to break chains. What happens when your spirit finally refuses every lie it ever agreed to? What happens when you no longer recognize the fear you lived with your entire life? Break the root, and the tree falls. Break the fear, and the money flows. Break the shadow, and the future shifts. There is no curse in this world that can stand in the light of a spirit that says, "Enough." But what you don't kill in your roots, your children will have to face in their wars. The battles you avoid today become the chains your bloodline wears tomorrow. This isn't just about you. This is about every future that has your name coded into its foundation. Are you the one who breaks the chain, or just another link waiting to rust in silence? How many more years will you water what you were born to uproot? The root is your real enemy. The cycle is your real prison. The fear is your only cage. If you let Psalm 112 work in your roots, not just your prayers, every fruit changes. The story ends when you say, "No more." If the root is gone, What would your authority look like? What could heaven trust you to carry if you didn't believe every lie that money is pain, or breakthrough is for someone else, or your name is tied to failure? This is the transfer Satan cannot stop. The next step isn't about fighting for blessing. It's about standing in the authority that comes when the curse is nothing but dust behind you. Break the chain, uproot the fear, burn the old contract. Let Psalm 112 become the rain that drowns the root forever. Most people spend their lives begging heaven to send a blessing they already own but never claim. They fast, they plead, they fill journals with the names of things they hope for, but the enemy's only strategy left is to convince you that authority must be earned, that you have to pass a test before you can walk in your inheritance. But what if every prayer for breakthrough was really just a sign that you've been standing outside your own house, asking for the key, when the deed was already signed in your name? Psalm 112 isn't a lottery ticket, it's a transfer deed, already stamped with heaven's signature. The power is never in the one who pleads, it's in the one who dares to declare ownership, to write their name in ink where everyone else hesitates. If you're still begging, you're still living as a renter in a palace already bought for your bloodline. If you wait for permission, you die with a heart full of promises and empty hands. The enemy knows he can't steal what God has released, so he tries to convince you that you're not allowed to hold it. How many inheritances have been left unclaimed just because someone was waiting for a sign that never came? The curse dies the moment you stop waiting for validation and start declaring what's already written. Every system built on fear, on tradition, on religious ritual, loses its grip when a son or daughter signs their name to heaven's contract. The devil's nightmare isn't you going to church, it's you finally claiming authority over everything God already released. Why let your enemies hold the deed when the contract is already delivered to your hand? Psalm 112 is not about fighting for favor, it's about activating it. You're not waiting for God to say yes, He's waiting for you to sign. What's the real price of never declaring what's already yours? What does it cost to die with your voice locked behind your teeth, your name blank on this registry of inheritance? The system doesn't fear your prayers, it fears your declaration. No priest, no prophet, no system, no tradition can stand between you and the transfer. Religion will always try to wrench you what heaven wants you to rule. You don't need a go-between, a spiritual landlord, or a blessing broker. The only thing required is your willingness to declare what's yours. Satan cannot cancel what you refuse to surrender. The curse cannot block what you sign for in faith. How many years have you leased what you were born to own? How many nights have you cried for permission while the title deed waited with your name on it? If silence is your legacy, then poverty will always have a place to sleep. Every unspoken declaration is a blank check Satan cashes in your place. The curse holds because the contract is unsigned, not because heaven is withholding. Your voice is the only signature heaven is waiting for. You can pray 1,000 prayers, but it is one declaration that writes the law in your favor. Authority isn't given to the loudest or the longest, it's handed to the one who dares to claim what's already released. Heaven's vault is not protected by angels with flaming swords, it's waiting for your name on the line. Will you let another generation sign what was written for you? Will you leave your children to wander through rented rooms, or will you be the first to claim the house? Psalm 112 doesn't just describe a blessed life, it demands a transfer of ownership. Every breakthrough starts with a mouth willing to say, "I claim what is mine." If you walk away silent, you're not robbed, you're the one refusing to open the vault. Every silent believer is a contract signed in hell's favor, a door left open for darkness to move in. This is not a game, this is not a metaphor. Your silence is an agreement with the enemy. The blessing waits for no one. You will not be begged to take what is already yours. Write, "I claim my transfer" in the comments. If you stay silent, you leave your name blank on the greatest inheritance heaven ever wrote. The vault stays closed, not because it's locked from the outside, but because you refuse to declare your right. Your silence doesn't make you humble, it makes you invisible to your own legacy. Who will sign for your bloodline if you don't? Who will speak for the next generation if you leave the line blank? The authority transfer is irreversible the moment you declare it. The curse unravels, the system of darkness shakes, the chains of silence shatter. The devil can argue with your theology, but he cannot contest your declaration. The only voice that has the legal right to break the system is yours. Psalm 112 is the transfer deed. You are the only one with the power to sign. The registry of heaven is open. The blessing is waiting. Don't let the next story be about what you almost received, what you almost claimed, what was always just within reach but never spoken out loud. What miracle dies unborn if you never speak your name? The choice is yours, and it's not just for you. It's for everyone who carries your DNA, for every future that will echo your courage or your silence. The next step is not a waiting game. It's a transfer, it's authority, it's inheritance finally set free. The vault is open, the transfer is written, and heaven's eyes are on you. Who are you when you claim the authority no one ever told you was yours? What happens when you refuse to be silent, refuse to leave your inheritance unsigned? The world may never notice, but hell will tremble, and heaven will record it. This is the moment that changes everything. The moment you dare to declare, I claim my transfer. When you do, you don't just break the system, you begin a new story. What will they say about you? That you waited, that you watched, or that you declared? Because the blessing waits for the voice that claims it, and the future is written by those who sign it in faith. You thought the curse was personal, but it was never about you alone. It was about a system. The enemy never cared about one person's pain, one family's struggle, one lost dream. Hell never fights for moments. It builds networks. Its greatest weapon is a system of control, an invisible infrastructure built on fear, tradition, cycles of silence, and the belief that limitation is holy. Psalm 112 was always the code meant to crash this system, to spark a chain reaction that would echo through every bloodline. But for most, the enemy's economy thrives on cycles of lack and prayer without breakthrough, of waiting rooms and delayed promises, of fighting shadows while the real war rages under the surface. Every time someone accepts less as normal, the system profits. Every contract not broken is a link in a network that keeps entire generations on the outside, staring at a door with their name on it. Every prayer delayed, every dream that dies waiting, is a line on the enemy's profit sheet. The system does not just operate in your life, it extends like a root system under entire families, entire cultures, built to normalize losing, to sanctify survival, to keep hope alive, but never fulfilled. You are not just fighting a stubborn problem, you are crashing a network. The real war is not just about you, it's about a network of spiritual contracts designed to keep what's yours out of your reach. How many in your bloodline lost the battle before they ever started fighting? How many destinies were handed to silence, simply because no one believed a different outcome was possible? Most people inherit patterns, not just problems. The system programs you to wait, to call poverty humility, to dress up fear as wisdom, to believe that lack is an offering to God. But what's been normal for generations is only normal for those who never break the script. This is how a system survives, by teaching every new heir that their ceiling is their birthright, that just enough is all they should expect. But Psalm 112 was always the script rewrite, the code that would ignite a rebellion of enough. What was tradition for your ancestors can become transformation for you, the moment you refuse to let the system dictate the limits of your faith. Every act of silence strengthens the system. Every day that goes by with the contract unsigned, the curse remains legal. Every declaration fractures it. When one person claims what's theirs, 1,000 old contracts break behind them. This is not individual deliverance. This is the start of a mass exodus. Your voice, your declaration, your authority. It's the domino that runs through the whole family line. The system isn't built to lose just one. It's built to collapse entirely when the first chain breaks. The devil's greatest fear is not your victory, but the domino effect that victory unleashes. Your breakthrough is never for you alone. It's the beginning of a mass escape. Who else is waiting for your voice to sign their freedom? Who else, in your blood, your story, your lineage, will taste the blessing when the system falls? The day you declare, you start a domino that runs backward and forward in time. No curse can stand when the contract is burned at the root. The enemy spent generations building an empire on silence, but one moment of boldness, one declaration, collapses what centuries tried to hold together. The system was never built to withstand a chainbreaker. Will you let the system stand, or will you be the one who drops the match? What price will be paid for another year of hesitation, another decade of silence, another generation that never dares to question the pattern? Blessing does not spread by accident. It erupts when a system collapses. This is the eruption: generational wealth, peace, joy. The kind of breakthrough that becomes a legacy, not just an event. The harvest does not come to those who wait, but to those who break the ground. Heaven never intended for you to win alone. Your declaration sets captives free. Your authority is the breach in the walls, the crack in the foundation that lets light pour through every locked room. The system trained you to wait for rescue. Psalm 112 trains you to lead the jailbreak. What looks impossible for generations becomes the new normal in a moment of collapse. The only thing more dangerous than a cursed system is a silent heir. Every structure of limitation is waiting for the voice that will not be shamed, will not ask for permission, will not accept less. When the system falls, inheritance flows. What was withheld for centuries becomes daily bread. What was unreachable for your fathers becomes unmissable for your children. The cycle of lack, shame, waiting, wishing, is shattered in the light of a system exposed for the lie it always was. The question is never, will the system hold? The question is, who will be the one to set it on fire? When the dominoes start to fall, there's no turning back. Heaven writes new stories for families brave enough to break the script. Your future is not decided by the system, but by the one who refuses to live in its shadow. The collapse is not the end, it's the opening. The transfer is not our moment, it is the beginning of generational release. Are you the link that holds the system together, or the one who lets it fall? The final awakening waits for the voice that can't be silenced. If you're ready for what comes when the system is dust, step forward, because when all that's left is authority, that's where everything begins. This isn't the ending, this is the line every chain fears. The system is gone, the shadow collapsed. Every curse that dared to follow you here now has nothing left to hold. What's left is authority, bare, wild, unfiltered. What's left is you standing on ground no one in your family ever reached. And the only thing that stands between you and the next miracle is the sound of your own voice. Now, all heaven and all hell lean in, waiting to hear if you will say what has never been said in your line. I live Psalm 112. The story is no longer about what you lost, but about what you dare to claim. Every word, every wish, every prayer has been building to this moment where you realize there is nothing left to negotiate. The curse is dust, the system is ashes. What you do now will write the future of generations whose faces you may never see. No more prayers for permission, no more hoping someone else will call your name for you. The transfer waits for no one. The registry is open. The contract has only one blank left, and it's for your signature. Your voice is the hammer that seals what heaven unlocked. It doesn't take years of struggle. It doesn't take endless labor. It takes a decision, spoken aloud, drawn into the world by the power of declaration. Every chain, every shadow, every delay has a breaking point, and it is the moment you speak your truth out loud. You don't inherit by wishing, you inherit by declaring. Heaven is not waiting for your silence to turn into holiness. It's waiting for you to set the record straight. What will heaven write beside your name? Silence or awakening? There will be millions who hear, but only a handful who answer. History is not shaped by the crowd, but by the voices that dare to speak when silence feels safest. When you say, I live Psalm 112, you don't just end centuries of lack, you change the atmosphere over your name. You create a new normal in your bloodline. You finish stories of surviving, and you begin a chapter of reigning. The story is not over, but the cycle is. This is the moment. Speak your declaration. Write, I live Psalm 112 in the comments. Say it, speak it, don't whisper. The world doesn't need another silent believer. This is the moment when heaven records your voice. This is not about pride. This is about freedom. This is about being the one who wouldn't let fear have the last word. Every name left unsaid is another inheritance lost to the ashes. The story of your family is being edited in real time by the choices you make right now. The blessing waits for those who speak, not those who hesitate. You are the beginning of a new cycle, the breaker of the silence, the proof that Psalm 112 was never just a hope, but a revolution. The world may never know the chains you broke tonight, but heaven records every name that dares to declare awakening. You are not just claiming money or peace or reputation, you are claiming the power to write your own legacy. The inheritance is released the moment you speak it. It is not reserved for the special, for the worthy, or the few. It is reserved for those who refuse to be silent. This is not a story about waiting for miracles. This is a story about becoming one. When you declare, "I live Psalm 112, the chains you never saw begin to fall. The doors you thought were locked swing open, and the system that held generations collapses into dust." This is your moment to set a new law in motion, a law written not by fear, but by faith, by blood, by declaration. The blessing will not wait forever. The registry is closing soon. The time for negotiating is over. The time for action is now. Let your declaration be louder than your history. Let your voice echo beyond the grave of those who only wished but never spoke. Heaven waits for the one who will not be silenced, who will not delay, who will not let shame or the memory of lack dictate what is possible anymore. The final chain is your own tongue. Break it, and you break every other. The cycle ends here. The future begins here. The world may never notice, but eternity will. Heaven will. Your children will. Your story becomes the new beginning for those who come after. Declare it, live it, share it. Let Psalm 112 become your name, your legacy, your answer to everything the enemy ever tried to steal. This is the moment when curses break, when systems fall, when destinies are rewritten. And heaven shouts the name of every person who stood up and spoke what others only dreamed. The only question left is, will you speak it now? Or will you watch your legacy pass into the silence of another generation? Because tonight, everything changes for the one who declares, "I live Psalm 112.